We got here in 2013, and I remember we took a trip to Houston, stayed for a week, and came back. It literally looked like there was no color, but nothing was going on. There was no movement. There was nothing. And I'm going, oh my God, we got all these nonprofits and we have all this potential, and everyone is just in their small little silos and pockets, just surviving. And the city is dying.
Coming in on campus, I definitely had the impression of like, oh, it's probably better that I just stay on campus, that I just, figure out my community here and not like be involved in Marion, and I just don't want to risk anything.
What I learned when I got here, especially in this area, was a real rough area. But as I said, my background is law enforcement, public safety, criminal justice, and social services. I know some people are in a situation they're in for reason. There's a reason behind it.
I only knew the stories that the public or outside our city knew about us. So it's funny how much you can live inside a space but not really hear the stories of the people in the space. So while the stories may have been the same, the perspective was different.
Marion has a very robust history from many things. So specifically on the manufacturing, at one point in time we had upwards of 7 factories in town that really helped boost the economy, and now a lot of those have left. So we have about 4 or 5 of them still here in different capacities than what they were before. So now we're in a position in Marion where we're trying to redefine who we are.
Marion looked totally different. I mean, it was wonderful when I was growing up, and then even better in the 70s and 60s when my mother was growing up. So in 2008, it was slowing down, and then when the recession came in 2008, it ended all manufacturing.
I think before we were relying upon major companies to define who we were. So people worked at one major factory, and they would answer the questions. We work at blank, and this is who we are. This is what builds our community. So people define themselves in that. So when that industry left, it was a big hole in not only jobs, but a hole in self-esteem, this mentality.
Some of the common stories that we heard about Marion is, how when manufacturing left, how much it's caused us to struggle as a community, and that is true. But on the other hand, the understanding of the survival and the thriving of the people who have chosen to stay here and how they've chosen to step into making the place better. There's that very real story of the last lynching in Indiana that took place here in Marion. And part of the journey of Marion Design Co. is hearing that story, leveraging the importance of knowing that story is not just one perspective of the story, but there are multiple ways of looking at the story. So how can we as a community learn from it, as opposed to looking at it and then saying, we're done with it, move on. Because it will never go away, but it's something that we actually can grow from as a community.
When something like that happens, it sometimes it provides a shadow over the community, and so I think IWU is a predominantly white institution, and so it's attempting. I think this year they brought in a larger amount of minority students, but IWU does not reflect. It is in the community, it's part of the community now, but it doesn't reflect the wider community, and so I think there is kind of a racial tensions that exist. The other piece is just class. Things look different in this area of Marion than it does in other areas of Marion, and the people who live in certain areas of Marion sometimes have a different status when it comes to class. And so I think both of those things, race and class, become really big differences or divides that it really does require intentionality and relationship building to kind of mend some of those divides and to begin to change that narrative.
For the better part of a century, Indiana Wesleyan University has been the choice of thousands of people like you.
Even just touring IWU before I came as a freshman, I remember my parents being very concerned about the community of Marion, just because it's not rated as safe as other cities in Indiana. And so my parents asked a lot of questions about, like, is it safe to go out into the city of Marion, and like, what are like safe areas and stuff like that.
A lot of students come on campus and they kind of stay on this side of town and don't always, venture out into the community. And community members oftentimes stop at 38th Street and don't really come on campus. They don't feel like this is a place where they belong and are welcome. So we're trying to change that.
I feel like when one thrives, the other thrives. So oftentimes in the past, I think there's been a perception of like kind of guarding guests or students from the reality of the city that they live in. But every city has a need, and a campus is there because there is a need in the city. So I think as a new student or as a parent who's bringing in a student, recognize that when you're moving in, you become a part of the solution for the city.
I think that it starts with partnership. If we come together and partner on everything, projects, community initiatives, whatever it is, if we start looking through the lens of partnerships instead of individual entities coexisting, then I think that will begin to improve the relationship and also improve the city and the university.
Indiana Wesleyan does play part because they do have to show that they care. Not the savior complex. Not going out in fear, but one of those where like we as a university go out and we just do it, and we just love the way God wants us to love.
And when you step across 38th Street and walk into areas that may not feel as pristine as campus, that is not necessarily the face of the people who live there, because they all have lived experiences just like any of us. So I think understanding that just because something doesn't feel pristine doesn't mean it's not safe. It's kind of that broken window syndrome, that broken windows and like blighted areas make us feel like we're not safe. But the thing that makes people feel more safe isn't necessarily more policemen or more authorities around us, it's just more people. So recognizing the greatest benefit students bring is their presence in communities.
I just think it's a very important biblical concept that we just learn and grow from the people around us, and that we don't separate ourselves from the opportunities and flourishing that exists right around us.
Your student getting involved in the community will help the community to know that there's people from different places, and of course there's a younger generation, because the students are always young, they're always energetic, and they always bring new ideas. So the thing, the community, the Marion community will benefits a lot from the IU students because of the knowledge you bring, the charismatic, whatever you have, because as a young person, you want to learn and you want to build things and you want to make sure that the place you work is cool, it's nice. So yeah, I think that it's very beneficial for this community.
I think for anybody struggling to get involved in the community, I would say, just kind of put yourself out there, and even if you're feeling uncomfortable, even if you're kind of a little bit fearful, just kind of be courageous and go out and see how God can use you, because He really can.
Public Harwood created this model a long time ago, and it's kind of the rhythms of communities. And part of the reason why it was created was to say, okay, when you go into a community, you can't just go into a community and kind of say, I'm going to do this to the community, I'm going to do that to the community, but there should be a period of listening and a period of assessing and a period of diagnosis of where exactly is the community. And so this model, I think, at least even though it's old, has helped me think about community development and how to assess a community. I would say that we're in the catalytic stage, which is the next stage. And that stage is about movement. People are willing to take risks, people are willing to experiment, in order to kind of move to the growth stage, you have to grow deeper, not faster, but to grow in depth and to create new norms. My task as a practical theologian is when I go into a community, my question isn't how do I bring God here, but my question is where is God already at work? That's my assumption, not that I'm bringing God anywhere, but that God is already at work in the community, and that my job is to find out where I can partner with God.
We have to be more present. It shouldn't have to be formal. You know, as a Christian, you evangelize as you go. So if we're out and about, and we have Indiana Wesleyan on, we're representing the university, and we work there. We have the university apparel on, and we love differently. The Bible tells us to be unique, you know, to be peculiar, and to stand out, because we're light. You know, we're light and salt. So you're going to bring a different flavor. You're going to bring light, and you should. You shouldn't be, well, I'm just going to blend in and be quiet and just, you know, I'm going to go into Maya real fast to get what I need and just be quiet, keep my head down. No, you should be the one that stands out.